One of the things about Moshiach, which I don't think I spoke too much about in the past, is the meaning of Moirach V'doin. It says about Moshiach, one of the unique things about Moshiach is that he'll be able to judge by a sense of smell.
Doin Miloshen Dan.
Miloshen Din, yeah. The Gemara says, there's a pasuk on the famous prophecy about Mashiach, which you say in the Haftarah of Achron Shal Pesach. It says that it'll rest upon Mashiach, v'nochalav ruach Hashem, ruach chachma ubina, to rest upon Mashiach a spirit of wisdom and understanding, so on and so forth. And it says, v'haricha ibiras Hashem. And there's a number of explanations what this means. One of the explanations the Gemara says is that v'haricha comes from the word reach. Mashiach will be able to smell through his fear of Hashem. So the Gemara says this means moirach v'doin. They'll be able to smell and be able to judge based on the sense of smell. Now, there's a lot to speak about. I want to discuss an overview. First of all, what does it mean halachically that Mashiach will be able to judge by a sense of smell? What's the permissibility according to halacha to judge? The Torah gives clear guidelines how a person has to judge, how a king has to judge, how the Sanhedrin have to judge. There needs to be two witnesses. There needs to be sound testimony. Where does this idea of Mashiach judging by a sense of smell fit in? And also I want to discuss a little bit of deeper meaning of what it means that Mashiach will judge with the sense of smell and how it's applicable in the avodah of every yid. But first of all, I just want to start off with like this. A king has special powers that a court doesn't have. What does that mean? You have, let's say in the times of the Beis Hamikdash, you had the Sanhedrin and you had the king. Sanhedrin ruled over cases that involved matters of money, involved matters of life and death, dinei nefashos. So what was the role of the king in that regard? So there's a number of opinions about it, but one of the points here is that a king has the ability, as a hiroah shah, the Rambam writes, if sometimes there are things getting out of hand, there's too many murderers, too much trouble going on, so a king has permission as a temporary thing to rule not according to the criteria of Torah. In other words, to give you a very simple example that everyone probably is aware, if let's say two witnesses see a person running after someone else in the cave with a knife, and they see him coming out, the knife is dripping with blood, and they see the wound, it's clearly, all forensic evidence will clearly say that this knife was used to murder this person. Nevertheless, al pi halacha, you can't kill this murderer because it's not circumstantial evidence. You didn't actually see how this person was killed, but the two witnesses didn't actually see the act. There's a concept of even the Sanhedrin, if things got out of hand, they would machnis in the kippah. There's different things that they would do. They would to maybe kill this person indirectly, whatever it might be. But there are certain limitations how halach allows the Sanhedrin to even if it seems like this person killed him, if there's no clear proof, you can't put him to death. It says the king had permission as a hero. He wasn't able to do this on a regular basis, but when he felt it was necessary, he was allowed to kill someone, even if according to the laws of the Torah, he couldn't convict him that he has to be killed. If the king sees the need for it, he's allowed to do it. And you have throughout Tanakh, you have a number of examples of, where this was used, but this was done with Poel Mamish. So the king is given the permissibility that even when he doesn't know for sure, so to say, you can't prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that this person did this crime. But nevertheless, so many, people are getting away from justice out of it. No person was always, because people know that in order to convict someone of murder, they have to, there's certain strict criteria, so they would try to cover up their,
Tracks.
Yeah, so therefore, it came at a time like that, the king was able to say, okay, if there's enough circumstantial evidence, or there's one witness, whatever, the Rambam gives different...
Ba'achov, I don't know, it wasn't al pi halacha, but maybe hagid noves.
Yeah, but dort mat gesagt, they brought Eidim, there was Eidei Shek, gut. But false Eidim is Eidus. Not that Achav just killed himself. They brought Eidus that he cursed.
Ich verstehe, aber Besden could have searched the Messias, das stimmt nicht.
Ich weiß nicht, ob sie gewinnen, als ich Parshas.
Okay, אפשר, okay.
Ich meine, das ist eine Story. Ich habe das sehr oft. Moshiach hat gehargert 80 Mechashves. Und nege das Loch, jetzt finde ich nege Loch. Ich meine, es kann so schon. Und es liegt der, mit den genommen von Master, die noch gemacht false.
They made false witnesses, and then the witnesses came. It was clear that they're lying.
And they said that, they're lying.
And but Al Pi Halacha. Yeah, so the truth is that even the Sanhedrin has the right in extreme cases to do this. What exactly the difference between Sanhedrin and the king is a fine line. But in the bottom line, this is the role of a king. The role of the king is to enforce justice. Even in the cases where the regular justice system, so to say, has its hands tied and they can't enforce the law, so the king has the ability that if one witness says that he killed him, we don't have two Eidim, but one witness, the king feels, this guy is killing people and, something has to be done. So he has the right to put him to death.
No, Marcus Mardus, maybe it's not that, but because it's something.
Marcus Mardus doesn't necessarily, scare away a potential murderer. It has to be Kevet Tzedaf Amol Zayin, as you should.
No, I'm saying Marcus Mardus could the king say if someone is some evidence, we're gonna kill the guy. Marcus Mardus doesn't mean dafke money. Doesn't mean Malchus. Marcus Mardus could be killing also, no?
No. Marcus Mardus meant Makinoi says. Can say not to take nafshi, but anyway, fine. So this was the role of the king. Now I would just say that according to some opinions, a king b'chlal, there's a whole discussion about what the role of a king was al pitoida. There are those opinions that say that a king b'chlal, when he used to judge people, it wasn't according to the laws of his Torah. It wasn't required to. In other words, the king could put people to death if he felt it was justified, even if the Torah doesn't say, you have to put him to death, and so on and so forth. There is a whole opinion that the Sanhedrin had to rule according to Torah. The whole idea of having a king was that a king, he judged based on, what he, on whatever it was that was needed to enforce law in the land. This was his steady way of judging. But other opinions disagree with this. I think the Rebbe learns like this pshat. The Rebbe explains a lot according to this way. The Rebbe explains the definition of a king. The Rebbe accepts, it seems, more this approach that the king had to follow halacha. He has to follow the Sanhedrin. His way of passing law and judgment is not different from the laws of the Torah. But the Torah gives him a right that in cases that are necessary, he's able to. In order to break crime, whatever, he's able to go, has extra special measures he's able to use. So now, let's take this a step further. So in the regular king, in the case that he has a umdana, what is called in halacha, which means a circumstantial proof that this person committed a certain crime, so if it's necessary, he's able to put that person to death, whatever it is. With the chiddush of Moshiach, in the terms of halacha, is like this. Same way a regular king could use a umdana, could use circumstantial evidence of ways. It's not 100% clear, but it's clear enough. Mashiach will be able to use a sense of smell
and know what's...
And that will be a good enough umdana, that will be a good enough proof, so to say. In other words, the Mashiach won't be able, it's not pshat, Mashiach comes, he's able now to judge by a sense of smell. A person comes and says, it's Chayiv Mitzvah, it's Mechal Shabbos.
Won't be no fakest. By his smell, won't be no fakest.
Good, but the shaila is al pi halacha. You need to have two Eidim. So the point is that in halacha sometimes says that in certain cases, as a hiroah shah, as something which is, if the time needs, you don't need to have clear evidence. On those things, Mashiach will be able to use a sense of smell. A regular king that says, ich schmeck the mensch, I smell the person, I think he's a murderer. We tell them you have no right to put him to death, even if you feel it's necessary because crime rate is going up. You have no right to do it unless you need to have something more substantial that every human being can relate to. Mashiach, his sense of smell will be able to be relied on. That's the way the Rebbe, the Rogatchover explain where the permissibility according to halacha is. A Mashiach could judge by his sense of smell. Where according to halacha there needs to be clear evidence. What do you mean? I smell that this person, this zakai, this person is high. Therefore, he has to give money. Therefore, he has to this. In other words, because there is a certain permissibility when there's a need, there can't be on a constant basis for the king to judge based on circumstantial evidence, based on estimations, and this is a good enough for Mashiach it's good. Now, the Rebbe asks, the Rebbe spoke about this word that I'm saying, I'd find in the Sicha Vachin Shal Pesach Tavshin Yud Ches, and there's also Shabbos Parsha Shmini Tavshin Chav Gimel. The Rebbe spoke a lot about Moirach V'Doin. It's not clear. Sichas Kodesh is not very clear. There's a few Hanachas and Teres Menachem. They tried to rewrite it. Well, exactly what the Rebbe said is not fully clear. Also, Maimon, the Rebbe said that Shabbos. I'll be chassidus on it. But the Teichen the Rebbe says is like this. The Rebbe asks a question. If that's the case, not that the Mashiach will be able to judge any case with a sense of smell. It means that within this permissibility that Torah gives, the Mashiach will be able to use a sense of smell. So he says, the Chiddush is just that a regular king, for him, he needs to use one type of umdana. He needs to use one type of circumstantial evidence. Face, it's a witnesses that Api Halacha maybe are not fully kosher, whatever, he's able to use that. The Chiddush of Mashiach is that he has another type of umdana, another type of evidence he's able to use, which is a sense of smell. But there's nothing fundamental new about this thing of Mashiach. There seems to be something. It technically is just another type of circumstantial evidence that Mashiach will be able to access no one else did. But you're not being. It doesn't. In other words, you're not highlighting anything specifically great about Mashiach with it. So the Rebbe says,
Internet doesn't mean nevuah, right?
No.
It doesn't mean Ruach HaKodesh.
No, it's not Ruach
Smell
HaKodesh.
is closer to Ruach HaKodesh.
It's closer to Ruach HaKodesh,
Okay,
but
well,
it's
that's
not
what
Ruach HaKodesh. It's not Ruach HaKodesh because
I mean, it's not.
the Rebbe
not
clearly,
Gashmius.
because the Rebbe, it's not Gashmius. The Rebbe says a word. The Rebbe says the din of Moirach V'Doin is nothing. It's not mitzad Mashiach's din as a novi, because a novi, if a novi comes and says that I know through nevuah that this person is the murderer, you can't put him to death.
But the Maimon is not similar to that concept that it is.
Which mimer?
The Moirach V'Doin. The Maimon.
Which mimer are you referring to?
I think.
Chav Varich Be'ez Hashem Tavshin Chav Gimel. That what?
When the Rebbe says clearly that the sense of Hariche is a level of Mashiach, a Gilui of Mashiach, that is a Gilui that's not. It's not a Gilui of a Gashmistic Gilui.
Of course, Moirach V'Doin is a very spiritual Gilui.
Yeah, but that's the.
But in other words, nevuah means
No, it's not nevuah.
It's not nevuah. In other words, nevuah means that I know through divine inspiration. Moirach V'Doin means I smell the person. In other words, it's like taking an apple and smelling if it's rotten or not. So Mashiach will be able to smell the person. He'll see it in the person. It's a little different than nevuah. So, b'chol ofen, the word the Rebbe answers again. It's a hanacha that was written at its time, which wasn't. It's not fully clear. But it seems the word the Rebbe is saying like this. The chiddush the Rebbe uses, the words, the language the Rebbe uses is that the chiddush of Mashiach is that then it will be constant. What does it mean it will be constant? In other words, that everything that Mashiach will do will be in a way of Moirach V'Doin. It's not Moirach V'Doin is not just a something that Mashiach will do. That in case, he in certain specific cases, since there's justice needs to be prevail, so he's going to be able to he's going to be able to be Moirach V'Doin. The Rebbe says, the Rebbe emphasizes in a number of other sichos as well. Moirach V'Doin is a hallmark of Mashiach's state, that Mashiach in everything in the world will be able to smell through and see what it is. So this is my understanding of the Rebbe's Sikha, just to fit it in with the context.
Over there at the highest level.
Yeah. But in other words, the Rebbe says the Chiddush of Mashiach Moirach V'Doin the Rebbe says will be in everything. Will be b'tzmidas, Chiddush of Nefesh, everything. Even though, in other words, way I understand the Sikha, even though Api Halacha, Mashiach will only be able to actually judge a person and not use regular evidence because of his sense of smell, only in specific cases if it's it's needed for that time. But the concept of Mashiach being able to smell and judge is something that in everything Mashiach will be able to smell through the essence of everything. So even if it's not negeya to judging a person in a court of law, it's regarding being able to reveal the essence of everything. Mashiach will have that ability. That's the way I understand the Sikha. And the Rebbe says Mashiach will be in every. And Tzmidi, I mean, the whole word the Rebbe just said is that it's only Hayra Shah. Now, getting back to what this is a nice pilpul al pinigla, but let's get down to understanding what Moirach V'Doin technically means. So you have Chassidus speaks a lot about Moirech V'Doin on a very deep level, but the point of Moirech V'Doin, the Rebbe says the Rebbe says a word in pshat. The Rebbe is malbish it. The Rebbe puts it and clothes it, and the Pashat understand very in a simple way. The Rebbe says like this: there's a simcha the Fidik Rebbe in the Kutei Diburim. The Fidik Rebbe spoke. I think it was Tafresh Tzaddik, if I'm not mistaken. Simchas Torah spoke a whole hemshech, a whole series of sichas. It's one sikha, but it's printed, I think, in the series on this on the nevuah of Nochel of Ruach Hashem. Fidik Rebbe describes there what does it mean Varicha Yibiras Hashem, that Mashiach will judge with a sense of smell. So he says he describes it there primarily. It's interestingly he's describing it regarding the Dinu Mishpat or the Yom Hadin. It will be judgment who will merit to the Giluyim of Lasalav. So it says Mashiach will judge with a sense of smell. It says that Leila he won't. The pasuk there describes Leila Mare'enov. He won't judge based on his eyes, his ears, with a sense of smell. He says, what does that mean? He says there's certain things that you see about a person. You could see what he did, you hear what he said. Then there's understanding the person's background, what caused a person, whatever a person does now was a sacha koil of everything that happened in his life up until now. In order to be able to properly judge a person, you have to really understand his whole life story. You can't judge a person until you know exactly where, his whole back, where he is, his state, his place. Doesn't just mean his physical place. It means, his emotional state, his, history, and so on and so forth. Mashiach will be malamed schus on every yid, because Mashiach will be able to show how the fact that a Yid behaved in a certain way wasn't due to his stam, roya bechirasa, whatever, because he was stam, decided to do the wrong thing, but because there were certain circumstances, he had a bad upbringing, he had going through a hard time, whatever it might be, that he will bring out where that person inherently is really good. So that's tight, he will smell. In other words, he'll be able to reach the essence of the person by understanding the whole background of things. In other words, when Mashiach will obviously use a l'schus. It says the Shaitan Zayda Baal Shem Zagzam is a geschmack of word to keep in mind when you meet people. It says that the bigger the word, I think from the Ramlachim of Chernobyl, the Pshem the Baal Shem somewhere along those lines. It says that the bigger tzaddik is, the more he's able to be malamed schus on the shem. So a regular person can be malamed schus on. It said to be malamed schus on a real big rosh, you have to be a real big tzaddik. So Mashiach will be able to be malamed schus on every, because of the greatness of Mashiach. Mashiach will be malamed schus on every single yid. So the word is that when a person comes to a dying to a judge, so pi halacha, there's things that take into consideration. It's like the Maisa, also the Matla Chernobyl or the Tzemach said, they say a whole Maisa that there was a certain woman, that there was a certain rumor that she sinned with against a Maisa. So Tzemach Tzedek wrote, I think, he said that she can't be with her husband. I forget exactly what the halacha was, but he passed in the halacha based on the Alpi halacha. This rumor was to be believed, and you have to act accordingly. So this woman went to the Matla Chernobyl. Matla Chernobyl looks at her fire, then he doesn't see a mark of this sin. I think it was the Tzemach Tzedek, whoever it was, he said that Torah, you have to follow Torah according to the Torah. Says this, Matla Chernobyl says he doesn't see a mark. It could be through the tears of tshuva she erased it. But you can't take away what Torah says. So Mamela, in other words, according to Torah, you have to follow what your eyes see, what your ears hear. Mashiach will have the ability, he'll be able to, when he's judging a person, be able to smell through and get to the core. Smoirach v'doin is he'll be able to get through to the core of what led the person to this. He's going to judge, he's going to be able to reach, so to say, that's
the sins that were done before Moshiach came.
Einochanami. So not, but in other words, in this particular sikh, it's discussing the din mishpat that will be. It speaks about whatever, different opinions about the Yemadin, whatever it is, but it says it will be din mishpat who will be zeichet to Tchias HaMesim or to Elam Ha'abot that comes after Tchias HaMesim, whatever it is. So that's what the Fidik Rebbe writes. So the Rebbe explains Abi Chassidus, Ameirach V'doin is the Gilui V'chidesh B'nefesh. It's whatever it is, Kabbalistically, mystically, the whole word. It says that the food, the mouth is the source of, I think, is the opening of midas, of emotions, and the nostrils represents the gate to the intellect. And then in the nostrils is the right nostril and the left nostril. It says, like you see, when someone is faint, the only way to awaken him is not by giving him food. You give him a nice ice cream, he's not going to wake up. You have to give him strong salts. And then if he's really in a deep faint, you have to use a very strong salt. So there's the right nostril and the left nostril. There's chayim and chayim, the chayim. One is chayim, one is achida. A lot of Chassidus speaks about this. And so Moshiach, Moirach V'doi means that when Moshiach will be the revelation of Yechidah Sheb'nefesh, so he'll be able to, so to say, smell through the essence of a person. His essence of what a yid is, of the lakusas will be revealed in Mashiach. Will smell through the essence of every yid. The Rebbe says, another interesting idea the Rebbe says about Moirach V'dain, very geschmack of word. The Rebbe says that the certain things that are pi halacha, and avoid this application of Moirach V'dain is obviously in serving the Eibishter. The Rebbe says that in avoida, the certain things that Shulchan Aruch says outright, it's permissible, it's not permissible. Then there's certain things that doesn't say clearly. It's what you call tali behergish. It depends on, So it doesn't say permissibility. It doesn't say clearly it's permissible, it's not permissible. But there's a certain thing, the person has to have a chush hareach. He has to be able to smell. If it smells, he has to be able to have a smell of Yiddishkeit, the smell if it's coming from a proper source or not. Like the famous story of the Rebbe Rashab, a certain Indian. The Rebbe Rashab is a very high level of it, but there's a certain Indian, whatever is in Shneged, there's a certain thing the Rebbe Rashab opposed tremendously at that time. And the Sfas Emes thing was the Gerer Rebbe. He said, what is your source that it's completely, upgefrekt, it's completely something totally not within the pale of Yiddishkeit, that it's a klipa. So he said, that's the way I feel it. So he says,
Who the Frierdiker Rebbe said?
No, the Sfas Emes, I think, asked the Rebbe Rashab or something.
Rebbe Rashab.
So I forget the exact legends. That's the way Azay likes to chapim. He said, "Aftem stellst du sich." This is your source. So like that. He said, by mitzvah, I train my body to follow everything it says in Shulchan Aruch. Shulchan Aruch says that should do, my body should automatically do it. Not to do it, not to do. It says from then on, my body is trained to do the right thing. So if my body doesn't, if I feel a distance from something, I know that it's not coming from kedusha. So that's from the level of the Rebbe Rashab. But in Mayenza, what's takib shat aricha biras Hashem. So the says like this very interesting thing. I saw a Maimer. It's brought. The Rebbe Marash says that the ikar avodah when Mashiach will come will be yiras Hashem, not avas Hashem. It says Mashiach will be so imbued with the fear of Hashem that he'll be able to smell right away if this thing is godly or not godly. He'll be able to smell right away through someone.
Mashiach.
Yeah, Abdas is now there's a person you have this, there's the Indian of knowing what it says and then being fully connected with Torah. So Mashiach will have such a fear of the Eibusher that he'll be able to even things that don't say black and white. He'll smell. He'll get to the bottom of it. Is it kedusha? Is it not kedusha? So the Rebbe says. The Rebbe didn't say this right. The Rebbe Marash. I'm saying in this sikha, I see the Rebbe says that in the avodah v'yid, it means that he has to sometimes use a sense of smell. Where does it say it's prohibited? It doesn't say anywhere, but it doesn't smell like it's coming from Kedusha. It doesn't smell from Chassidishkeit. So that's the meaning of Moirach V'doin by a Yid. Now,
Lechumra, you could understand it, but lekule, I mean.
Da wissen wir ein
That has streif, but I smell it's kosher.
Then you have to be very
When the Rebbe Rashab, okay.
You have to be very careful. I'll say a Maisa. There's a Maisa, the Alter Rebbe was you say that the Alter Rebbe was, I forgot whenever, in his earlier years, I guess, before there's a question on a shaila on a chicken in his house. His wife took it to the Rav of the shtetl. Alter Rebbe wasn't home at the time. So then the Rav passed in the streif. Then she brings it to the Alter Rebbe. She asks him what's the halach. He looks at it.
Not the wife.
So he says, Al pi halach it's kosher, but selikt after matreif. It's lying on it a treif. There's a psak from the Rav. Said it's treif, so it's like whatever. But I'll tell you a mice. I heard this mice from Mendel Arona from Toronto. He as a kid you heard of the Chassid Reb David Haradok, David Kivman. So he was staying in his house. It was a Maisa that his mother had a shaila and a chicken. There was a Rav and a beautiful kulasher. So his mother showed the chicken to Rebbe the Klash. Then she schraps the chweis. Reb Haradok is in her house. She'll show it him. Shows him chicken. Said, "I've done it from Shenga Paskint." Yeah. So then this chicken they already passing out. What was the psak kosher is kosher. He was able to sense that they already passed on the chicken. So I guess we could connect with Meirach V'doim, but as we can shmecken. Anyway, b'chol ofen, so getting back to this to the subject at hand. So this is
That's the Rebbe's question.
huh?
The Rebbe's answer is that not pshat is. It's not occasionally. This is a way of life.
Right.
It's a whole different thing.
Right, in other
Everything
words,
is,
it's-
everything you
it's-
look at, you see.
Right, now one thing in Pshat, like you mentioned before, I mean, the Rogachev I believe also says, I couldn't find it tonight, but he says that Indian of Moirach V'doin, smelling, he says smell is the Gemara says, is a Dover Shah Neshama Nanisman, or something that the Neshama has pleasure, not the body. He says that smell represents, I think he uses there, the Oasis, Chomer, Tsura, whatever it is, smell relates more to the pneumius of something, not to the actual physical,
Still Gashmis, you make a brocha.
no, of course it's still gashes, but it's another.
That's the level.
So in other words, it's a certain. It's a so it's a certain. It's I think he forget it. Whatever. B'chaleif. In other words, it's a certain. It's a certain understanding of Torah or whatever that is not so much something that you could make a calculation and come to maskana. Something's in of reach, but Chassidus speaks a lot about the mile of reach, how it reaches that nefesh. I have a number of Mezumayim Rachan Shal Pesach Tavshin Yudal. The Rebbe speaks a lot about this. Rachan Shal Pesach Tavshin Chav Gimel. I'm sure there's more memorim. Those are some of the main memorim the Rebbe speaks about it. So now another. It's just one more, whatever. Just another few minutes. Another point which the Rebbe speaks about, which is that one of the signs the Gemara says, one opinion at least in the Chazal, is that Bar Kochva was killed because the Chachamim tested him. Bar Kochva said, "I'm Moshiach." The Chachamim tested him, and they saw that he doesn't have this quality of Meirach V'doim, being able to smell. So they killed him. And the Rambam writes that Moshiach doesn't have to do miracles in Hilchos Malachim, Perek Yud Aleph, and the Rambam right away questions with the Gemara. They killed Bar Kochva because he wasn't able to be Meirach V'doim, to smell and judge. So the Rambam learns that Meirach V'doim is one of the simonim of Moshiach. The way how you tell he's Moshiach is that he has the sense of smell. The way the Rebbe has a whole long arichas in the Sicha and B'chukoyse, in the Sicha of Shtei Tekufos and Chelach of Zayim B'chukoyse, a very long God. I don't want to get into it, but the Rebbe says the point that the Rebbe makes is, first of all, in Chazal there's different opinions about Bar Kochva, whatever. I don't want to get into it, but the point the Rebbe makes is the Rambam obviously also agrees that Moshiach is going to reach to the level of Meirach V'doin. I mean, but the point that the Rambam is trying to say is that it's not a siman, it's not a sign of Mashiach. Mashiach's what proves that he's Mashiach is that the Rambam gives criteria. He has to be a Melech and Beis David. He has to return the Shleim Zotei Mitzvah, so on and so forth. The quality of Meirach V'doin could happen later. Could be the Mashiach start.
Can before also.
Could happen before also. In other words, if you don't see it, it doesn't mean that it doesn't block him from the ability to be Mashiach. It could happen later. I saw someone start explaining. You see it also in the Psukim of Mashiach. You see the Psukim mention different things. Whatever in the Psukim V'achnu Shal Pesach, it says. Later, you look at a sequence, it's different. In other words, you could understand the Rambam looks. I don't want to get him in the Nevuchim style, but it says "V'nochal of Ruach Hashem" will rest upon him a spirit of Hashem. So, what does that mean? The Rambam explains that sometimes a person feels. You had certain heroes in Jewish history. What gave them the ability to go on fights? He says they felt. They felt possessed with some type of spirit of gevura, of nitzachim, that they felt they're able to go ahead and do it. So he says, this is like you find by Shimsh and others. I think he teaches, that's teached by Moshiach, Nachal of Ruach Hashem. There's something, in other words, the Eibusha endows a person with a certain spirit of, he says it's not Nevuah. The Rambam, I think, explains by Nevuchim, it's not an idea of prophecy, is even a higher level. Sometimes certain people, they feel empowered to do something, it's coming from the Eibusha, it's not the level of Nevuah. So it could be, according to the Rambam, that there's different, so to say, at least in the matzav of, of Loi Zoch, or the minimal, should be minimal of the requirements of Mashiach, that is Nachalav, then there's Vaharichoy, there's Meirach V'doim. It doesn't happen right away. But nevertheless, the Rebbe spoke a number of times, according to the Ravid, you see how Meirach V'doim is negeya to the etzem That's thing of Moshiach. I'll also finish up with one word that Rogachover says, similar to the way that Rebbe Limshat and Ram. The Gemara says, there's a whole famous thing, I don't want to get into this, but there's a Yerushalmi that says that the binyan of building the Beis Hamikdash comes before the kingdom of Moshiach. That was the Zionists used that as a proof that Moshiach doesn't have to come to build the Beis Hamikdash. We could return to Israel, build the Beis Hamikdash on our own. And the Rebbe Rashab wrote a whole long letter, which is the Rebbe quotes a number of times, and he explains that obviously Mashiach will come before the building of the Beis Hamikdash. It means that the complete kingdom of Mashiach will only take place after the building of the Beis Hamikdash. The Rogachover says a very similar thing, but in his style he explains the whole thing. He says that the Malchus Beis David, or the Gemara also says in Psachim Shmoi Shel Mashiach, that there's a binyan of Beis Hamikdash and Shmoi Shel Mashiach, that the name of Mashiach comes after the building of the Beis Hamikdash. He says the ultimate capability of Mashiach to be able to judge by a sense of smell only takes place after the building of the Beis Hamikdash. So that's what it means that the building of the Beis Hamikdash comes before the kingdom of David HaMelech. In other words, this idea that Mashiach will be able to judge by a sense of smell is the ultimate level of Malchus, of kingdom. That level of kingdom will only be manifest after the building of the Beis Hamikdash. But it doesn't mean that the building of the Beis Hamikdash happens without Mashiach. It means that then, at least in a revealed level, you don't have to have Mashiach by that level of Meirach V'Doin. Dikir is, then take it from Yad Mamish.